Hey y'all, I'm back with a DIY background video, and this time I'm going to be showing you guys how to stamp using a pencil eraser, and I'm going to use a bunch of different mediums, and I'm going to start with dye inks, and I'm just showing you guys some of the things I'll be using, and I'll walk you through the stuff that I'm using as I go. Here are 5 inks that I'm going to be using, and I'm just simply tapping the end of the eraser into the ink, and I'm not wiping it off. I'm only going to wipe it off in between the colors. So as you saw, I used one ink first, and then I'm going to go back in with this ink that I'm using now is Malibu. The first one was teal. This one is bubblegum. And the first two, like bluish ones, are Simon Says Stamp, Malibu and teal. And then the next three are going to be Hero Arts inks, and those are bubblegum, butter bar, and orange soda. So I do have to go back in and add specific colors in certain areas, and I think I probably go back and add all the colors at one point in time. But my idea was to have like kind of a confetti look coming from the top of the pattern paper, and that way I can kind of really, you can place your focal point or your photo anywhere on here, but I think my idea was to have it kind of like floating somewhere in the middle, maybe to the right, but I wasn't quite sure. And so you guys will see how that process goes here in a little bit. So I'm done with that one. And now I've got a piece of craft paper. So I'm using pigment ink, and obviously on craft, you could probably use dye ink. It will just not show up as good because it's going to absorb into the paper. So I'm doing the same technique. I'm doing polka dots all over the entire page. I'm using Meant to Be for one of the Avery Elle inks, and I'm also using a Hero Arts white pigment ink. And then I'm using, I was going to use another Hero Arts ink that was like kind of a brighter pink, but I ended up not doing that because I wanted to stay with the light color. So I used Pixie, I believe. Well, yeah, I used either Pixie, I think I used Pixie for that one. So this time I'm using acrylic paint, and I'm doing the exact same technique, and I actually skip here in a second because I figured you guys didn't want to watch me do this like several times. I think you'll get like the picture or kind of get the gist of what I'm doing, but I just toned down one of the pinks that I had, and it kind of made more of an orchid color, and then I used I think I used another acrylic pink, and I think they're just both cheap paints. This time I'm going to emboss, and this one turned out okay. The way that I did the same exact thing, and by the way, I used different pencils for each one of these techniques just to make sure it didn't transfer any paint or ink or anything like that. And so I'm using a piece of white cardstock, and I'm using Versamark ink, and I'm simply going to do the same embossing technique that everybody knows and loves, but I'm doing it on a piece of pattern paper, which I don't think I've ever done that before. I'm sorry, I'm creating my own pattern paper, and I don't think I've done that before. So I just got a huge piece of like watercolor paper and folded it in half, and then I used that so that I could fold it back and put the powder back into where it's supposed to go. So you'll see it kind of change. And this, I don't know why this took forever. I don't know if I have a Stampin' Up! Heat tool, which I thought was a good one. And for some reason, I don't know if I had like the wrong angle or what. I normally don't have that much trouble, but it was taking me forever. And this is sped up. I want to say this is sped up at 8 times speed because you guys, obviously know what I'm doing. I'm doing it like 4 times in a row. I'm just using different types of mediums. So like I said, I used alcohol inks for the first one, and I really loved the way that came out. Here's all 4 of them. Second one, I used pigment ink, and this is the one that I'm starting off with. I'm only going to choose 2 for these process videos, so I'm going to show you guys 2 processes right here. I used pigment ink on the craft, like I mentioned, because if I would have used like dye ink or alcohol ink or whatever, I think it's dye. I meant to say dye ink earlier. If I would have used dye ink, then it would have absorbed, and the colors wouldn't have been so vibrant and wouldn't have sat like on top of the page like I wanted them to. Third time I used paint, which you could really paint on like dark paper, you could paint on craft paper or on white. And then the fourth one I used embossing powder along with the Versamark ink. So if you guys have any questions about that, just let me know. I know I went through that technique pretty quick, but I wanted you guys to just kind of get an idea of how to do it, and then I didn't want to have to go over it over and over again and then bore you. So I also want to mention that I've done the technique with dye ink before, but I had never tried the other 3. And I want to say when I did it with the dye ink, I was on the Hip Kit Club design team, And I remember I loved the layout that I did, but I remember like getting the technique, and I think I got it from somebody named Tracy, but I think she did it with paint, so I'm not really quite sure. But I did use dye ink that one time, and I thought I would step outside, my little comfort zone, and get, maybe even if it created a little bit of a mess, just use paint and Versamark, which embossing powder is like not my favorite like medium to use, but it was really fun for this project. And then also use pigment ink, which I thought was one of my favorite. That turned out well. I really like them all, but I love the softness and the airiness of the pigment ink and the way that it showed up on the craft. So now I'm just kind of going through and looking at my papers. I'm using a lot, or looking at, the different 6x6 papers from the Wonder Collection, using quite a bit of little items from that particular collection. And really, I do like the way this layout turns out, but I was not planning on the way, kind of like the design. So I kind of go with the diagonal design here. And I want the ephemera to kind of flow from one corner to the one top corner to one bottom corner. And so that's, as I started to put some of these things on the page, I started to realize maybe I like the way that looks. Here's one of my homemade fringe hearts that I did share. I shared that process in one of my first DIY videos, so go and check that out if you get a chance. And then I'm just going to pop this whole thing up on Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. I like the like thickness of the Stampin' Up! Dimensionals, although I probably would do better with, I guess, wider pieces of foam, but this particular product like worked for this project. So, and I'm just going to start layering. You saw me cut apart a bunch of stuff earlier, and that's where you can make the most out of your stash, is really cutting apart those papers that come in the packs that have different elements all over. A lot of times I use my punches, and you'll probably see me do that quite a few times in these processes. It says, I think, "Oh So Lovely," that piece I just put down, that is something that I used one of my punches on. And if you don't want to take the time to like fussy cut stuff, because that is totally me, I do not want to take the time to fussy cut stuff. In fact, like, if there's die cuts or punches to make my life easier, I know that sounds really like first world problems, but if there are those tools, then I'm more likely to get those, because I think, like a lot of us, like a lot of people, I like to scrap up with things that are convenient and that don't take away from like the creativity, I guess. So, or take away from the time that I can spend like creating. So if I can, which I think a lot of people find fussy cutting, really therapeutic or whatever, but for me it's not. So for me it's like I would rather just use tools. And so you'll see me use a lot of punches in these videos or this particular video, to cut out some of those elements that are circular. I'm also looking at the Wonder sticker sheet, and I added that dream sticker right on top of the photo. And that is another thing that I've been doing more. I used to kind of get afraid to do that, to stick things right on top of my photo. I didn't want to cover anything up, and that was kind of like the old me. But when there's a little bit of like some negative space or blank space in the photo, I am not scared to put something right on top of it. And I think that it really does bring the layout together most of the time. So I'm just going to continue adding some of the stickers. And I thought that was cute. That said 1 + 2 = 3, which is perfect for this picture because it's one of our maternity pictures. And then I felt like that top corner needed a circular element, so I just added that right in, and then that pretty much finished that layout. And then I'm going to start with this layout. So those were the 2 papers that I chose for this particular video, and I probably will use those other 2 in future process videos, but for the sake of like time and like for this particular video, so that you guys aren't seeing 4 processes and at one time, I'm gonna just show you 2 of the papers. So this was probably my favorite one, and I guess probably because I just love color, and for 2, I love these collections. I think These are Finders Keepers, and what is the other collection? It's Finders Keepers, and then Rise and Shine. And then I use some other elements from other collections. I think I pulled, so when I organized my ephemera, I think I mentioned this before, but I put a lot of Amy Tangerine and Dear Lizzy stuff together because I find that their colors are a little bit more bright than obviously crepe paper. And so, like I told you guys, that crepe paper had two bins like to itself, because it just, I guess that goes to show how much stuff I buy that's crepe paper. But I really do love the Amy Tangerine collections and Dear Lizzy collections. So, and I'm having fun using all this stuff up too. So you guys just saw me just now use my punch. I think it's a scallop punch to cut out the ampersand. And then here's where I'm kind of trying to figure out, do I want to, just do the focal point in the middle and just do embellishments kind of like in random places, or do I want to do kind of a horizontal design? And I end up going with the horizontal design because I think it kind of brought all of the pieces of confetti together. It kind of followed along with that. And then also I'm going to add some more of that confetti down at the bottom, because I just felt like I covered so much of when they become a little bit more like spaced out towards the middle, I covered a lot of that up with my picture. So I decided to add some more at the bottom, and I kind of got a little carried away, and that's not unusual for me. So I decide to add more, and you guys will see that here in a second. So really all I'm doing is I'm just layering up, and then if you guys see me kind of go to the side, I'm just using my hot glue gun. I've just moved it actually to my right, because I was using my hot glue gun, but I realized I was using it off camera, and you guys were probably wondering what I was doing. So, but because this video is so sped up, that I realized that you guys probably didn't even notice I was kind of away for a second. I'm digging into those puffy stickers, and like I said, a lot of this ephemera is from the Finders Keepers collection, and then some of it is from, oh my gosh, what was that Dear Lizzy collection? It was not Fine and Dandy, although I may use one or two things from that. It's where it says I'll be yours and you'll be mine. I don't know why I can't think of it, but that is and it's not Polka Dot Party, it's like the one before that. And I probably had that piece of ephemera for years, and so I used that in this particular video, which that's what I'm loving. I'm loving getting to use my stuff, and I really wanted to use like everything I pulled, but I thought it was getting like a little bit busy, so I decided to stop while I was ahead. I'm just adding those pieces of confetti, and I have to say that when I originally did this, probably a couple years ago when I was on the Hip Kit Club design team, and it probably was literally 2 years ago, because I think it was like in February or March of 2014. So anyway, when I did that video, or when I did that particular layout, my inspiration was a Heidi Swapp. There was a Heidi Swapp paper that had like real pretty pinks and grays and yellows and kind of like a glitter effect. I got it from Michaels, and I remember seeing that paper and thinking, I can recreate that. And so that's what got me going, doing it that first time. And then this time I remembered that I had done that, and I was like, oh, I could share that process with them, and then maybe even go take it like one step further and use different mediums. So that was my idea for that. I'm pretty much just going to continue embellishing. In fact, I think I just add that title, and then I realized I want a little bit more black, so I add a splash of India ink, and then that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoy this process, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I try to reply as soon as possible, but if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments below, and I will get back to you. Have a great weekend.